Hey, my name is Tim Kraft. I'm from Beckley, West Virginia, and for a lot of my years, I was addicted to opiates. And it started innocently enough with, you know, taking something to try to escape my reality in the beginning, and then eventually getting it from a doctor to the point that I became uh, very, very dependent upon it. And so I worked in the coal mines during this time, and I can remember just parts of it, throughout the journey of like the first time I ran out. I can remember running out of pills and just feeling horrible and realizing in that moment that I had developed an addiction to it. So I began buying them off the street, and then my doctor upped me to a stronger medication, to Percocet, and then eventually to oxycodone. And I can remember one of my friends telling me one time, if you snort them, they work better. And so I began doing that. And I began dating a girl from a place called Oceana, West Virginia, which they nicknamed Oxyana, West Virginia. And this one, I began buying pills, Oxycontin at this point, and I was snorting them. And she went into this trailer one day, and she bought two Oxycontin 80. And when she came out, I seen her put hers into a spoon. She pulled it up in a needle and she shot it up, and it looked like every problem she ever had just left her right in that moment. So I became very curious of that, and she asked me if I wanted to try it. And so for the first time, I ended up shooting up, and I became so captivated. Like, I ran after it with everything inside of me. I gave it everything I had. And I did that for a lot of years. And throughout my journey, um, one day in particular that I'll never forget, as many times as I tell this story, this is always so clear in my mind. I can just picture this day. It was April the 6th, 2013, and I actually got a phone call that morning from my cousin, and she said, "Timmy, you have to get over here. We can't wake Brandy up. You have to get over here." So I rushed over to my brother's house where they were, and I pulled up, and there was two cop cars, two ambulances, and I jump out of the truck and I run through the yard. My mom and my niece were standing on the porch. My niece was 5 years old at the time. That's my sister's baby. And I opened the door to my brother's house, and I seen my sister laying on the floor. She had died from an overdose. It was an accidental overdose of Opana and Xanax. And that was really heavy to carry. Like, it was a lot to put on my shoulders. I'm still so stuck in my addiction. I don't really know how to process, everything that's happening. I don't know how to deal with it. My niece actually came and stayed with me the days following that, and I'll never forget. Like, on the third day after it happened, while my mom and dad was making all of the funeral arrangements and all that stuff, she looked at me and she said, "Timmy, when's my mommy coming home?" And those words crushed my heart. Like, that was a lot to carry. So not knowing how to deal with that, um, only dealing with it the way I knew how, I went deeper into my addiction. So I began to cover up any emotion from that whatsoever. I just tried to bury it. Um, a couple months go by on January the 11th of 2014, and my mom's sister died of an accidental overdose. She lived in Princeton, West Virginia. And so, not even knowing the scripture at the time, I wasn't, I didn't know any scriptures almost 5 years ago. And not even knowing that John 10:10 says the enemy comes but to still kill and destroy, that's exactly what was happening in my family. So, you know, I get my income tax in February. I'm laid off at this time from the coal mines, and um, I'm real deep into my addiction. Like, because the thing I realized later is, like, I didn't even know what I liked. I only liked what I knew, and the only thing I knew was how to cover up all my pain with drugs. So I buy this hotel room for a week, and I bought 19 stamps of heroin, 10 Roxy 30s from my dealer, and I go into this hotel room, and I'm hurting so bad from everything that had happened, I just began to try to shoot my pain away. So I'm just shooting up more and more. And I go out to a bar my second day there, and while at the bar, I actually bought some more heroin. And I'll never forget driving back from the bar, like the feeling that I had. It was almost like the only way I could describe it is to say like it was the darkest moment of my whole entire life. Um, my shoulders felt like they had 1,000,000 pounds on them, and my body was beginning to shut down. I had done too much, so I go into my room and I reach into my bag, and it's so crazy how deception works because like I'm searching for all these things in all these medicines. So I take my Seroquel for insomnia, I take my Valium for anxiety, and I take my Lexapro for depression. And the reality was, I was looking for all of the right things. I was just looking in the wrong place. So everything I was looking for was right. I was just looking in the wrong place. So I take those pills and I pass out on the bed in the hotel, like just like I'm sitting now, sitting up. And so throughout the night, when my body rejects the drugs and I throw up, the only reason I didn't die was because I was sitting up. Had I been laying down, I wouldn't even be able to do this video right now because I would be dead. And like I think about the significance of that moment now, not realizing it then, but I think about it now, and I realize that even before I ever cried out to God, He had His hand on my life. That even in that moment, His grace was upon my life, and I didn't even realize that's what it was, because in my mind I'm just thinking like, it's not even hitting me like, man, you were just spared death. So I wake up and I'm still hopeless. And my family came over to the hotel that day and they're trying to get me to go get help. They were like, you're going to die here. You got to go get help. Why don't you go to detox? And I kicked them out of my room because I felt hopeless, man. I felt like there wasn't a way out. And I felt like I was stuck in my mess and that nobody understood what I was going through. So I kick them out, and because the thing was, man, I had tried everything I knew. Like I tried to go to detox and white knuckle it. I tried to go to methadone clinics. I tried to go to Suboxone clinics, and I could never find freedom in those places. So I really felt like it was a hopeless situation. And that night, my family had reached out to one of my childhood friends. My cousin actually contacted him through Facebook and said, will you please go try to help him? He's going to die. And so he comes over to my room and he knocks on my door and he tricked his way into my room because like what he did is he knocked on the door and he put his finger over the peephole, and when I asked who it was, he said, J-Rock. And of course I'm going to open the door because J-Rock is somebody I used to buy dope from. So I opened the door and it wasn't J-Rock at all. He pulled the okie doke on me. His name was actually Jared Pugh. He had went into like we grew up together. His dad was a pastor, and he went into this ministry called Eddie James Ministry prior to this. And I didn't really know what all this story was. I just knew he went away, he came back, and he was married now, and his life was better. And he like was so persistent about me going with him, and he did exactly what the Bible talks about in Luke 15, where it says, if you had 100 sheep and one gets away, would you not leave the 99 to go after the one? And then, even more than that, would all of heaven not rejoice when that one is found? And he did exactly that. He left the 99 to come after the one. And so he was so persistent about me going with him. He's like, dude, you got to go with me. You're going to die here. Please go with me. And I ended up going with him. And we're going to his house, and like I just still feel like nobody understands what I'm going through. And I look at him, I'm like, dude, you don't understand what this is like. This is horrible. And he said, no, I really don't understand what it's like to be addicted to heroin, but I promise you that God does. And if you'll allow Him, He'll take this from you. Now, immediately my mind wanted to reject that, but something inside of me, I now know to be my spirit, rose up to that and was like, truth. And so I'm laying there in his bed, I went to his house, and I'm laying in his bed, March the 1st, 2014. It's the most important day of my life. And man, I was just done. Like, I knew if something didn't change, I was going to die. And the desperation in my heart was so serious. And I said, God, please help me. Because I don't know what else to do. Please help me. And I felt a peace that I had never experienced in my life. Like the Bible says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. And that's exactly what happened in that moment, because I felt the presence of the living God for the first time in my entire life. And that one moment changed me forever. Now, I still had to walk out a process after that. I went into Eddie James Ministries, which was a 1 year faith-based ministry, and I learned so much there. Like, I learned, the word. I learned very important things that could help me sustain the freedom I had found in that moment. I learned how to walk it out, and Eddie James just taught me things that were, so profound for me today to be able to do what we do. So I started a ministry in Parkersburg, West Virginia called High on Hope, and we actually combat the addiction problem in our area, and we're seeing God do amazing things. We're seeing people rescued. We actually, the very thing that was done for me in leaving, the 99 to go after the one, we actually have an initiative we call the Freedom Project, and we leave the 99 to go after that one. And we've seen amazing fruit from that. We've seen people's lives completely transformed. We've seen God do amazing things in their life. And even on a community level, we have seen like overdose rates in our county drop 43% in the past year. So we're seeing amazing things happen here. And we know that it's only Him that's allowing it to happen. We understand that everything that's done, it is Him that's doing it. So our vision is to bring Jesus Christ to the center of the drug addiction crisis. And that's our mission, and that's our goal. So I know that, I think about what He brought me out of, and I know it was for a purpose. And I think He always brings us out of situations only to take us into our destiny. And understanding that He brought me out of that situation, not just to live a normal life, not just to work a 9 to 5 and come home, but He brought me out of that situation for a purpose. And so now to be able to find His purpose for my life has been one of the most fun adventures I've ever had in my life. And I am so thankful for everything that He's done for me. And I look forward to everything He's going to do in the future, not only in my life, but in the region that we have our ministry in. Thank you guys so much